Hey guys, Dice Roland here with a list of some real cases of people being possessed by demons. Whether or not you believe in demons and malevolent spirits, these are still some very unnerving cases. So without further ado, these are 10 real cases of demonic possessions. Spoiler alert, Bob didn't make the list. Number 10. BobbyJindal. As governor of Louisiana, I'm sure there are a lot of good qualifications on Mr. Jindal's resume. However, one outshines the others. In the 1990s, during his university years, Mr. Jindal wrote an article about his experience in exorcising a demon from a fellow student. The student, Susan, had collapsed to the floor and seemed to have a seizure. With the help of other students present, Jindal proceeded to command the demon out of Susan's body. After a while, Susan woke up from the experience, appearing to be totally fine. Number 9. Robert the Doll. Eugene Otto was the original owner of the infamous Robert the Doll. He would often talk to the doll while alone with it in his room. Now, that's not entirely unusual for a child, except for the fact that Robert would respond. Eugene kept Robert by his side throughout his life, until the day he died. Robert continued to haunt the house and all those who lived there, even going so far as to have an otherworldly hold over certain people. He was eventually donated to Fort East Martello Museum, where you can visit him today. Number 8. Elizabeth Knapp. Before the Salem witch trials in 1671, there was the case of a young servant girl in the house of Reverend Samuel Willard. She complained of pains throughout her body, as well as the sensation of being strangled. She would speak in a demonic voice without opening her mouth, and would convulse and scream for long periods of time. Apparently, she had made a pact with the devil to obtain certain things that she wanted. It's unknown as to what exactly happened to Elizabeth. Number 7. George Lupins. This case took place in 1778, with George apparently being possessed by not one, not two, but 7 demons at once. Not only that, but these demons could only be removed by 7 different priests. A concerned friend asked for the help of a priest when George's mental and physical health deteriorated over time. He would have seizures, growl at people around him, and would often claim that he was the devil himself. 7 priests were gathered and performed the exorcism on George while he cycled through all 7 of the demons who had control over his body. Eventually, it was recorded that the exorcisms were successful. Number 6. Son of Sam, otherwise known as David Berkowitz, murdered 6 known people throughout a year starting in 1976. The reason possession is even brought up is because of a note that he had left at one of the murder scenes. In the note, he mentioned his father, Sam, who would drink blood and often tell him to, quote, go out and kill. Now here's the interesting little twist. Sam was the name of the demon who possessed Berkowitz's neighbor's dog. So according to Berkowitz, you should keep an eye on your neighbor's pets, because any one of them could be bloodthirsty little shits. Number 5. Julia. This is one of the more recent cases of demonic possessions, as it happened in 2008. A woman under the name Julia was evaluated by psychiatrist Richard Gallagher. A bishop had requested this after Julia claimed to be possessed. At random times, she would appear to go into a trance before bursting into a rage and shouting profanities at Gallagher and the bishop. Objects would also fall from shelves in the room. But just as quickly as it would start, it would stop, and Julia would be totally fine again with no memory of what had happened. It was decided that an exorcism would be performed. During the exorcism, Gallagher reported that it was unbelievably cold, despite the fact that it was a very hot day outside. However, later on during the exorcism, an almost unbearable heat was emitting from Julia. Many voices and sounds came from Julia as well, including some that were described as being impossible for a human to make. She spoke in languages such as Latin and Spanish despite not knowing them. She also seemed to possess superhuman strength and levitated a foot in the air. Number 4. Clara Germano. In 1906, a 16-year-old Christian girl named Clara made a pact with the devil. She was able to speak and comprehend Polish, German, and French. She also had knowledge of very intimate details about people around her despite having never known them before. She could also levitate straight up and had been known to throw people clear across the room. 2 priests performed a 2-day-long exorcism on Clara, during which 170 people saw her ability to levitate several feet into the air. Eventually, it was believed that the demons possessing Clara had been successfully exorcised. Number 3. Michael Taylor. Michael Taylor and his wife Christine were a very religious couple, but they weren't without their problems. Michael's wife had accused him of having an affair with their church's prayer group leader. After she confronted them both about it and they both denied it, Michael began to act very odd. His erratic behavior got so bad that he eventually went to a priest convinced he was possessed. In 1974, an over 24-hour exorcism ensued and 40 demons were removed from Michael. However, the priest warned him that he couldn't remove one. This demon turned out to be particularly sinister as Michael murdered his wife as soon as he returned home. He removed her face, eyes, and tongue. My question is, what did the poodle do to deserve being killed too? Number 2. Annalise Michel. I've spoken a bit about Annalise in my top 10 creepiest recorded audio video. The most unfortunate part about this case is Annalise suffered from mental illnesses and epilepsy. She had been treated for such before, but at the age of 20 she began to have negative responses towards all religious items. She also began to hear voices, see devils, and drink her own urine. It was Bishop Stengel who determined that Annalise was possessed and began to perform exorcisms on her. Over the duration of 10 months, over 70 exorcisms were performed. Eventually, she died due to malnutrition from refusing to eat and her parents stopping treatment of her mental illnesses. Annalise's possession was so infamous that Hollywood took it upon themselves to create the story, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, based on her story. And if you would like to hear audio from one of the exorcisms of Annalise, be sure to check out my video right here. And finally, number 1. Roland Doe. This is the name given to a boy in order to protect his identity, and it's a good thing since it was his story that inspired The Exorcist. Roland's aunt had given him a Ouija board before she had died, and in turn, he used it to try to communicate with her because he missed her so much. Proving once again that it's never a good idea to use the devil board, Roland inadvertently opened a door to let demons come through. Shortly after, Roland's family began to notice strange noises and things moving around on their own. After consulting their pastor, it was determined that an exorcism was necessary for Roland. He was taken to a hospital where he had to be restrained. But even with that, he was able to tear out of his restraints and rip a spring from his mattress, which he used to cut open the arm of the priest performing the exorcism. Successfully stopping the exorcism, Roland was taken to a relative's house. While there, 2 priests took on the arduous task of continuing the exorcism of Roland. After over 24 attempts, Roland let out a terrifying cry, and the entire psychiatric ward of the hospital they were in filled with a sulfuric smell. The exorcisms were said to be successful, and Roland went on to live a relatively normal life. And that was my top 10 list of real demonic possessions. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like to let me know. Don't forget to leave a comment down below telling me about some possession stories that you heard of. Also, don't forget to share this video to help the channel grow and subscribe for more videos like this. See you later. Number 5. Granny Stalker. You always hear stories about people who have had to deal with stalkers, and it's never a pleasant experience. It can also be very creepy. However, the man who received several messages from an old woman named Rainbow Granny are downright disturbing.
Peter, this is Rainbow Granny.